Welcome to the Whispering Tome.
Welcome to the Whispering Tome. This is a quiet corner of YouTube where history moves slowly and you are allowed to rest while you listen. Before we begin, I'd love to know more about you. Tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Are you drifting off late at night, resting in the middle of the day, or waking up with the sunrise? If you enjoy calm, research-based journeys through the past, you can support the channel by subscribing and turning on the bell. That way, YouTube will gently bring you back here whenever a new long sleep story appears. Tonight's journey will take us to the wide-open Mongolian steppe. We'll follow the quiet evening ritual of a nomadic herder and his family, from sunset on the grasslands to the stillness of the night sky above their Yurt. You don't need to watch the screen. Just lie back, get comfortable, let your breathing slow, and let the sounds of the story carry you. When you're ready, let's begin our journey into a Mongolian nomadic herder's evening ritual.
The sun sinks low over the Mongolian steppe, stretching golden light across an endless expanse of rolling grasslands. In the distance, a solitary Yurt, the round, felt-covered yurt of a nomadic herder, stands against the vast horizon. A gentle breeze whispers through the knee-high grasses, carrying with it the faint scent of wood smoke and wild sage. The sky overhead is an immense canvas of softening blues and golds. This is the threshold between day and night, a moment of stillness and transformation. In this serene hour, we are invited to witness the evening ritual of a Mongolian nomadic herder and his family, a daily rhythm as timeless as the land itself. As daylight fades, the pace of life shifts from the bustle of work to a calmer, reflective mood. The wide-open plains seem to exhale a sigh of relief from the day's heat. Distant hills are silhouetted in the amber glow, and the calls of animals carry clearly in the open air. This is a meditative time, filled with curiosity and reverence, as we step into the world of the herder to explore the intimate routines that have sustained Mongolian nomads for centuries. With a voiceover guiding our journey, we'll move through the scenes from sunset to bedtime, from the sprawling outdoors into the warm embrace of the Yurt, from practical chores to spiritual customs, immersing ourselves in the tranquil yet vibrant tapestry of nomadic evening life. In this long-form narration, every detail unfolds gradually, allowing us to absorb the atmosphere fully. We'll feel the crunch of dry grass underfoot and hear the soft lowing of cattle gathering for the night. We'll smell the rich aroma of wood fire mingling with milk tea and simmering stew inside the Yurt. As the sky shifts from fiery dusk to a star-strewn night, we'll learn not only what happens in a herder's typical evening, but why, the cultural meanings and historical roots behind each action. This is both a journey through one family's routine and a journey through time, connecting us to traditions passed down through generations on the Great Eurasian Steppe. No direct dialogue will interrupt the flow. Instead, a continuous, soothing narration will describe each moment and scene. This voice is our guide, painting pictures with words and gently providing context. We'll discover how the environment shapes daily rituals. The climate, the seasons, the ever-present animals, and the open sky all play a part in the story of the evening. We'll also touch on the inner landscape, the feelings of peace, gratitude, and oneness with nature that accompany the herder as night falls. The tone is calm and reflective, almost like a lullaby in itself, inviting the listener to slow down and savor the experience. Settle in now as the golden light begins to fade. Let your imagination open to the wide Mongolian steppe. Our journey begins at sundown, when the day's labor winds down and the gentle rituals of evening commence. Listen closely to the sounds of the nomadic camp and the narration that guides you, and feel the embrace of a culture where humans, animals, and nature live in harmonious rhythm. This is the story of a Mongolian herder's evening, a meditative, informative exploration of life under the eternal blue sky. Sunset on the steppe. The late afternoon sun hangs low, casting long shadows across the grassland. The steppe is awash in a honeyed light that turns every blade of grass into spun gold. Our herder, a man in his early 50s with sun-weathered skin and kind, narrow eyes, rides slowly across the plain on his sturdy Mongolian horse. He wears a traditional deal, a long robe-like coat of thick canvas and wool, dyed in earthy blues and greys. A broad cloth belt is wrapped around his waist, and as evening chill approaches, he pulls the deal snugly around him. On his head sits a felt hat, its brim shielding his eyes from the last bright glare of day. He is returning from the day's grazing grounds, and around him moves the lifeblood of his existence, his herd. Scattered about the gently undulating landscape are groups of animals that form the core of the nomad's livelihood. Nearest are a flock of sheep and goats, their white and brown coats dotting the green canvas of the steppe. They trot and nibble, bleating softly as they gradually head toward the familiar scent of home. Further out, a handful of sturdy cows lumber along, accompanied by a few shaggy yaks, the cows, long-haired cousins adapted to cooler climes. These larger animals move at a leisurely pace, swishing their tails against evening insects. And to one side, almost blending with the distant ground, a small cluster of horses grazes calmly, heads down in the grass. The herder's faithful horse nickers and tosses its head, as if announcing to its equine friends that it's time to head back. Each species knows the routine. Mongolian nomads traditionally keep what they call the 5 muzzles, 5 types of livestock that provide everything from food to transport. Horses, sheep, goats, cattle, or yaks, and camels make up this ancient inventory of nomadic life. In this family's case, camels are not present. They are more common in the arid Gobi regions, but the other 4 kinds thrive here on the summer pasture. For countless generations, herders have measured their wealth and survival in these animals. As the sun begins to set, the herder's task is to gather them close to the campsite for the night. This daily roundup is both practical and steeped in tradition, a ritual as old as the culture itself. We see him urging his horse into a gentle trot, making a wide arc around the straggling sheep and goats. His sheepdog, a large Mongolian Bankar with thick black and tan fur, darts deftly among the flock, guiding the animals with low barks. The dog's tail wags enthusiastically. This is work it has been trained for since puppyhood. The herder emits a series of short whistles and a sing-song call, signals that the herd animals recognize. In response, the sheep and goats begin to move in the desired direction, a few more stubborn goats bleating in protest before relenting. Dust kicks up around their small hooves in the golden light. From time to time, the herder swings a lasso rope in a wide circle, not to catch the animals, but to make a swishing sound in the air that keeps them moving. Each movement is calm and measured. There is no frantic rush, only the steady guidance that comes from years of routine. As the animals approach the home camp, we notice the surrounding terrain. The Jur sits on a slight rise of land, chosen carefully for good grazing and a bit of elevation to keep dry if rain falls. Nearby, a small stream glints with the sky's reflection, ensuring the family and herd have water. A makeshift corral of poles and rope has been set up not far from the Jur, a simple enclosure where sheep and goats can be confined overnight. There is also a circular pole staked in the ground with tether ropes radiating from it, a hobbling post for horses. This will be used to secure the most valuable or unruly horses after dark. All around, the land stretches out to the edges of sight, with with perhaps a distant cluster of hills turning purple in the dusk. One might spot another Yurt far off, the home of a relative or neighbor, but it could be miles away. Here there are no fences, no roads, no city lights, just open country merging into an immense sky. The sky is a drama in itself. To the west, the sun is now half hidden behind the horizon, igniting the clouds in flames of orange, pink, and red. To the east, the sky deepens into a cobalt blue, and a few early stars twinkle faintly. A crescent moon hangs like a silver pendant above the steppe, preparing to take over the night watch. As the light dims, the air grows cooler. The grasses stir in the breeze with a soft hush-hush sound, as if the steppe is whispering good night to the sun. In the far distance, a lone crane calls, a melancholy, echoing cry that underscores the solitude of the plains. The herder pauses on a small knoll to survey his domain. He rises lightly in his stirrups, scanning the horizon for any stray animals that might not have heard his call. His silhouette is striking against the twilight sky, man and horse unified, both motionless for a moment, as the sea of grass rustles around them. This pause is intentional and habitual. A nomadic herder knows the importance of accounting for every animal before night falls. Each cow, each goat, each horse is precious. Losing one could mean a setback for the family. Failing to find one before darkness could leave it vulnerable to predators or wandering too far to retrieve easily. Satisfied that none of his creatures are left behind, the herder clicks his tongue and descends the slope toward the Yurt. The flock moves ahead of him now, as if they too are eager for the familiarity of the nighttime pen. Near the Yurt, we see two young children, his son and daughter, perhaps around 8 and 10 years old, running to open the gate of the corral. They wave their arms and call out in their high, clear voices to encourage the sheep and goats inside. The children's laughter rings out as a particularly frisky lamb darts by, nearly escaping their herding attempts. One of the children grabs a long switch of willow and gently guides the wayward lamb back toward its mother. In a few minutes, the smaller livestock are safely gathered within the low fence. The children latch the simple wooden gate, the boy looping a rope over a post to secure it. Now the herder turns his attention to the horses. Mongolian horses are semi-wild. They graze freely all day and are adept at finding their own food, even pouring through snow in winter to reach grass. But at night, especially in summer, they might wander far if not restrained, or worse, they could become targets for horse thieves or hungry wolves. The herder identifies the few horses he will tie up for the night, typically the families riding horses and perhaps a mare with a young foal. Sliding off his own mount with ease, he gives a low whistle. In response, his main-herd stallion, a muscular grey with a thick mane, lifts its head from grazing and trots over. The man murmurs softly, patting the stallion's neck affectionately. Mongolians have a deep bond with their horses. A common saying goes, "A Mongol without a horse is like a bird without wings." In this moment, we see that connection, man and horse moving almost as one. He leads the stallion to the tether post and loops a long lead rope from the horse's halter to the post, leaving enough slack for comfort but not enough for a daring escape. Next, he gathers 2 mares that had been grazing nearby. One has a foal at her side. The little horse with its fuzzy coat prances nervously as the herder approaches. To calm them, he whistles a gentle tune and rubs the mare's forehead. The trust is evident. The mare allows him to slip a rope around her neck and bring her to the post as well. The foal stays close, occasionally bumping against the mother's legs. The second mare, already accustomed to the routine, practically follows on her own. Soon, several horses are tied in a loose line radiating from the post, where they can stand and rest, occasionally nibble the grass within reach, and be safe through the night. A few other horses, reliable ones less likely to stray, are left unfettered. They linger around the periphery of the camp, as if knowing that this is home and protection for them too. By now, the last edge of the sun has vanished, and the sky's colors intensify briefly in a final show of magenta and purple. The temperature has dropped noticeably. The herder breathes in, and you can almost feel the coolness of the air filling his lungs. He smells the familiar evening scents: trampled grass, the musky warmth of his horse's sweat, and a hint of smoke from the Jur's chimney, a sign that a fire has been lit for the coming night. He takes a moment to appreciate the beauty around him. Above, ribbons of pink cloud give way to the deep blue dome of approaching night. Below, his animals shuffle and settle, a ewe calling for her lamb, the lamb answering from inside the pen, the horses snorting softly and stamping to shake off flies, a cow mooing in low tones as it lies down to chew cud. These are comforting sounds, the sounds of a nomadic twilight that his ancestors 1,000 years ago would easily recognize. Standing near the corral, the herder watches as his wife joins the children in securing the gate. She is a sturdy woman with a gentle face, dressed in a long sienna-colored deal and boots. Over her shoulders is a patterned wool shawl to guard against the breeze. They exchange a few quiet words, perhaps noting that all animals are accounted for or planning the next chore. There is little need for lengthy discussion. Each family member knows their evening duties by heart, taught from childhood. The herder's wife carries a wooden pail in one hand and a small stool in the other. The presence of these items tells us the next important task of the evening is about to begin: milking. Evening chores and milking. As daylight melts into dusk, the family turns to the vital chores that must be done before they can fully relax. Milking time has arrived, and in a traditional herding household, this is a central part of the evening ritual. Mongolian nomads depend heavily on milk from their animals. It's not just a drink, but the source of butter, yogurt, cheese, and even a mild alcoholic brew. With many livestock, milking is not an activity confined to morning. It happens multiple times per day, including now at day's end. The herder's wife approaches the small pen where several nanny goats are bleating expectantly. Throughout the day, the lambs and kids may have been allowed to nurse freely, but for this milking session, the young ones were separated for a short, while so that the mother's udders would refill. The goats seem to know what's coming. A few stomp their feet or call out in half protest, half relief as the pressure of milk builds. Inside the pen, the older child, the daughter, skillfully catches one of the larger goats by the horns and leads her to a spot near the gate. The mother goat stands, albeit impatiently, as the wife sits on her low stool and positions the pail beneath the goat's belly. With practiced hands, she begins to milk, squeezing rhythmically. Frothy streams of warm milk hit the wooden bucket with a steady hiss and splatter. The goat bleats once, then calms as the tension in her udder eases. Meanwhile, just outside the pen, the herder and his young son are preparing to milk the cow that had come in with the herd. The cow is tethered to a stake in the ground, munching on a handful of pulled grass the boy has offered to keep her still. The boy holds another pail, eyes wide and eager to assist his father. Mongolian children learn early how to handle livestock. This boy of 10 is likely already helping with smaller animals, and tonight he watches carefully as his father crouches by the cow's side. The man pats the cow's flank and murmurs soothingly, perhaps calling her by a nickname or just a gentle "Sohio, Sohio," a common coaxing sound. The cow lows softly, acknowledging the familiar routine. The herder grasps the cow's teats and begins drawing milk with sure, strong motions. Jets of milk ring against the metal bucket. The cow's tail flicks, nearly swiping the man's face, but he ducks with a chuckle. The boy giggles, one hand resting against the cow's warm side to feel the vibration of her contented chewing. In a short while, the bucket has a few inches of rich milk sloshing in it, valuable nutrition that will likely be turned into yogurt or consumed as fresh milk tea. Not far away, tethered to the post, is the mare with her foal we saw earlier. Milking horses is a unique aspect of Mongolian nomadic culture. Mare's milk is the basis for Airag, the famous fermented drink also known as Kumis. It's slightly alcoholic and considered a staple refreshment in the warm months. Milking a mare requires a different approach. A foal's presence is essential to encourage the mare to let down her milk. The foal, hungry after being kept a bit away, now nuzzles its mother. The herder's wife, having finished with the goats, comes over with a smaller bucket. With the husband still tending the cow, she takes on the mare. She allows the foal to suckle for a brief moment. The mare's muscles relax as maternal instinct kicks in. Gently, the wife then nudges the foal aside and quickly milks the mare by hand. Mare's milk is thinner and sweeter than cow's milk, and the streams that flow into the pail are more subtle. The foal protests with a little whinny at the interruption, but soon she lets it nurse again for a moment before repeating the process. This alternating dance continues until the wife has collected a couple of pints of mare's milk. They won't drink this fresh, it's too watery and different in composition, but they will pour it into a large leather bag inside the jar where it will ferment into Airag by the next day. During these chores, the ambient sounds of early night envelop the camp. Crickets hidden in the grass start their rhythmic chirping. A pygmy owl, perched on a distant fence post, sends out a tremulous hoot into the twilight. Inside the goat pen, as one goat is milked, others bleat softly or shuffle about, bells tinkling gently if they wear them. The mix of these small sounds creates a peaceful pastoral symphony under the darkening sky. Now and then the quiet is punctuated by a sharper noise, the clank of a bucket set down, or a sudden splash when a cow flicks her hoof into a pail, drawing a light scold from the boy who then has to move the bucket out of reach. The family works mostly in silence or soft murmurs, but there's an unmistakable comfort in that silence, each person absorbed in the task, yet all moving in coordination like players in a well-rehearsed play. After several minutes, the milking is done. The pails are brimming with the evening's yield. The wife carefully transfers the goat and cow milk into larger metal canisters with lids, which will be stored for processing. Dairy work is never-ending. At a later time, perhaps the next morning, she will boil some of this milk for drinking, let some cream rise for butter, ferment some into yogurt, and maybe distill some into a clear milk liquor. But for now, it is enough that the milk is collected. One of the last outdoor tasks is to ensure the animals are truly secure and protected for the night. The Mongolian steppe is home to predators, and among them the wolf is both revered and feared. As dusk deepens, the herder listens for telltale sounds from the vast darkness beyond. On some nights, the howling of wolves echoes over the plains, a haunting, drawn-out cry that can raise the hairs on the neck of any shepherd. The threat of a wolf pack is very real. They are clever hunters, and a stray sheep or an unguarded foal could easily become prey. Many nomads will recall stories of wolves sneaking in at night or the times they've had to scare them off with torches and shouts. Tonight there is just silence at first. Then, far on the horizon, a single wolf's howl rises in a long, mournful note, answered by a couple of shorter howls, a small pack communicating under the rising moon. The herder pauses, bucket in hand, attuned to the direction and distance. These wolves seem quite far, likely up in the hills. He is not overly alarmed, but neither is he complacent. By instinct and experience, he has taken precautions. The sheep and goats are corralled and can huddle together. The horses tied near the jar will deter a wolf from coming too close to the dwelling, and importantly, he has his dogs. Aside from the one busy helping herd earlier, a second larger dog emerges from behind the jar, yawning and stretching. These are the family's guardians. The two big dogs trot around the perimeter of the encampment now, sniffing and marking their territory, effectively laying a scent warning to wild intruders. The dogs' ears perk toward the distant howls, and one responds with a deep series of barks, a clear message into the night that this camp is defended. After a few moments, the howling ceases or moves away, and the only canine sounds are the occasional sniffs and snorts of the dogs making their rounds. The herder gives a reassuring pat to one of the dogs as it passes by. "Good boy," he might be thinking, though he utters no loud praise that would break the tranquility. In the Mongolian language, he might whisper, "Seihan nohoi," meaning good dog, or simply communicate with a scratch behind the ears. The dog wags its tail and continues on, a proud soldier on duty. Now darkness is truly settling. The horizon is a faint line separating the deep blue sky from the black earth. Overhead, stars appear in uncountable numbers. The Milky Way unfurls across the heavens like a gauzy white scarf. Here on the high plateau of Central Asia, the air is clear and dry, and far from city lights, the stars shine with startling brilliance. The herder briefly tilts his head upward, recognizing constellations as familiars. There is the Big Dipper directly north, known in Mongolia as the Dalun Burkhan, the Seven Gods. According to legend, those 7 bright stars are 7 divine elders watching over the night. Nearby, the North Star Altan Gardas, the golden nail, holds steady, a fixed point that travelers have navigated by for ages. The herder's eyes linger on these celestial markers. He doesn't consciously think of their scientific importance, but he feels a certain comfort that they are in their expected places, as were last night and countless nights before. It's one more continuity between him and his forebears. The same stars guiding their way, the same night sky roof under which they have performed these evening tasks. With the animals tended and the darkness gathering, the family begins to turn inward, both literally and figuratively, toward the home and hearth. The children, who have been yawning between their excitement, are ushered by their mother to wash up briefly. Using a ladle, she pours a bit of water from a ceramic basin over their small hands. They scrub the day's dust away and splash some cool water on their faces. Water is precious here. Even with a stream nearby, it's used thoughtfully. The remainder of the water is not wasted. She flings it outside onto the grass, an offering back to the land that provided it. The herder and his wife take one more slow walk around the camp to double-check everything. The corral gate is secured, the knots on the horse tethers are tight, the milk pails are covered to keep insects out, and nothing is left outside that might attract wild animals, like leaving salty leather or food scraps where curious noses might sniff them out. Satisfied, they gather their implements, stools, ropes, the now empty milking pails, and head to the Yurt, where a warm glow already beckons from the partially open door. Before stepping inside, the herder pauses and gazes one last time at the horizon. The afterglow of the sun is nearly gone, just a faint band of pale light to the west. He breathes deeply, taking in the coolness and the earthy perfume of the night. This moment of transition from the open outdoors to the enclosed shelter feels almost ceremonial. Out here, he stands in the embrace of vast nature. Inside the Yurt, the circle of family and tradition awaits. Bridging these two worlds is at the heart of nomadic life. In a quiet, perhaps subconscious gesture of gratitude, he reaches down to touch the ground, fingers grazing the grass. It's an acknowledgement of the earth that sustains him and his herd. He then ducks slightly and steps through the low doorway of the Yurt, into the warmth and light within. His family follows, leaving behind the darkened steppe for now. Outside, the livestock stir and then settle, the dogs lie down with ears still alert, and the Mongolian night continues its slow deepening. Inside the Yurt, however, a new scene is about to unfold. one of domestic coziness, nourishment, and gentle companionship that characterizes a nomadic herder's evening. Inside the Yurt at dusk, crossing the threshold of the Yurt is like entering a different world. The Yurt's round interior is illuminated by a soft, flickering light. At the center, a small iron stove glows with a bed of burning embers, casting dancing shadows on the lattice walls. The air inside is warm and carries a melange of comforting scents. Wood smoke, mixed with the distinctive tang of burning dried dung fuel, boiling tea, and the rich aroma of simmering meat. After the vast openness of the steppe, the Yurt feels intimate and secure, a womb of warmth amidst the cool expanse of night. Our eyes take in the arrangement of the Yurt, an arrangement that is both practical and filled with symbolic meaning. Directly opposite the low door is the place of honor, a simple altar table pressed against the wall. On it are arrayed a few framed family photographs, some religious or sentimental items, and a small brass bowl. Perhaps there is an image of the Buddha or a revered Lama propped up as well, reflecting the Buddhist influence that many Mongolian families have blended with older shamanistic practices. A shallow offering dish of juniper or incense might be sending a thin curl of fragrant smoke upward, adding to the tapestry of smells. Above the altar hangs a strip of blue silk cloth, a kardag, a traditional ceremonial scarf, representing the sky and respect to sacred elements. This altar area is treated with reverence. It's where the family may say quiet prayers or give thanks each day. To the left side of the door, the western side of the Yurt, are items and furnishings considered the man's domain. Here we notice a stack of saddles and bridles, neatly arranged. One saddle, made of dark leather with hand-tooled patterns, rests atop a low wooden rack. Coils of rope and a long horsewhip hang on the wall lattice nearby, tools of the herder's trade. We also see a tall pole standing upright in this section with an upturned lasso loop at its top. This is a spear-like pole for hanging things like ropes or even dry meat, and sometimes for symbolic protection. A sheathed knife and a hunting rifle might be propped in a corner here as well. While hunting isn't daily, many nomads keep a firearm for predator control or hunting game. On the right side of the door, the eastern side of the Yurt is the woman's side. Here we find the small kitchen area. A low table holds bowls, pots, and cooking utensils. Stacks of neatly folded blankets and textiles sit atop a wooden trunk that doubles as storage and a bench. The trunk might contain finer clothing or sewing supplies. A large metal basin for water sits nearby, along with a wooden barrel filled with fresh water fetched from the stream. Hanging from the wall are ladles and a wooden churn. There is also a curious bag made of hide, suspended from the ceiling by ropes. This is the fermentation bag for Airag, fermented mare's milk. It's plump with the day's collection of mare's milk, and as we watch, it sways gently from a recent stir, fermenting into the mildly alcoholic drink that will be ready by tomorrow. A few cheese curds are drying on a cloth-covered tray, hardening into Aral dried yogurt bites, which are both food preservation and snack. Every object in this space has its place and purpose, reflecting a life of self-sufficiency and order. Between these two sides, in the middle of the Yurt, is the heart of the home, the stove or hearth. It's a simple cast-iron stove with a short chimney pipe that rises straight up through the center of the Yurt's roof. The chimney exits through a circular opening at the top of the tent, known as the Tome, which is like a crown supported by wooden roof poles radiating outwards. This opening can be covered or uncovered with a piece of canvas as needed. Right now, it's partially open to let the smoke out and to allow a bit of night air in. If one glances up, you can see a couple of bright stars twinkling directly through that roof opening, a tiny window to the cosmos above, reminding those inside that even sheltered, they remain connected to the vast outside world. The stove crackles gently as dried animal dung burns within. On these treeless plains, wood is scarce and every twig is precious, so nomads rely on dried livestock dung collected and stored in piles as a primary fuel. It might sound unusual to those unfamiliar, but dried dung called argle burns hot and relatively clean, with a slow, steady flame, imparting a unique scent that nomadic families associate with home. The wife had ignited the stove a short while ago, using some dung chips and a bit of brush kindling. Now a kettle sits on the stove, already steaming, and a largish pot is beside it, emitting savoury fumes. Let's step fully inside now, joining the family around the hearth. The herder, having washed his hands and face at the basin by the door, takes a seat on a low stool near the stove. He lets out a contented sigh, stretching his legs that are a little stiff from the day's riding. The children bustle in and settle on a rug by the stove, the boy poking at the fire with an iron poker to adjust the dung fuel, and the girl carefully arranging bowls and cups for the upcoming meal. The mother tends to the pot on the stove, lifting the lid briefly to stir with a wooden spoon. A burst of steam escapes, carrying the mouth-watering smell of stewed mutton and noodles. Tiny droplets of broth sizzle as they hit the hot stove surface. Inside the jar, the light is dim but sufficient. Besides the fire, a small oil lamp flickers on the altar and another hangs from a lattice pole, fueled by rendered mutton fat or a modern candle stub. The walls of the jar, insulated with thick felt, glow softly in the firelight, their white surfaces painted amber. The family's shadows cast on those walls are large and gently moving, a little theatre of silhouettes performing the nightly dance of domestic life. Now we focus on the preparation of the evening meal, a central event of the herder's evening. Mongolian nomadic cuisine is hearty and straightforward, shaped by what's available, primarily meat and dairy with flour for dough and perhaps a few root vegetables if they've traded for them. On this night, the wife is preparing a dish called gyriltai shul, a simple noodle soup with meat. Earlier in the day, she likely kneaded dough from wheat flour and sliced it into flat strips of noodles. Now those noodles bob in the boiling broth alongside chunks of mutton on the bone. The meat comes from a sheep slaughtered maybe a few days ago. Nomads butcher their own livestock periodically, then keep the meat fresh in the open air or a shaded spot. The dry climate acts as a natural refrigerator, or they preserve meat as jerky. The stew also contains perhaps a bit of wild onion and salt for flavour. In truth, it's a plain meal by global standards, no colourful spices or array of vegetables. But out here, this rich, fatty soup is life-sustaining and deeply satisfying. While the soup simmers, the mother also prepares the beloved milk tea called su te tsai. She takes the kettle of boiled water and pours some into a second pot. She adds a generous handful of loose green tea leaves and a pinch of salt. Then comes a ladle or two of fresh milk from today's milking into the brew. The mixture is allowed to boil briefly on the stove. She then takes a long-handled ladle and performs a distinctive motion, dipping and pouring the hot tea from height back into the pot repeatedly. This aerates and mixes the tea, integrating the milk and bringing out a creamy texture. The sound of tea pouring and splashing is rhythmic and almost hypnotic. After a couple of minutes of this, the milk tea is ready, a pale, milky brew with a mild aroma. In Mongolian tradition, milk tea is considered not just a beverage but a fundamental part of the meal, often dubbed the pinnacle of foods. It warms the body and the soul, and no gathering or meal is complete without it. The father and children sit patiently as these preparations finish, their faces content and expectant. The boy's stomach growls audibly, prompting laughter. The father teases lightly, patting the boy's back affectionately. He knows the child worked hard today and has earned a good meal. The girl arranges a small table, really a painted wooden box lid propped up in the center of the family's seating area. She sets out bowls and spoons for the soup. On the table, she also places a platter of bortsog, which are fried biscuits or donuts made from flour and fat. These were likely prepared in advance and kept in a sack, as they stay good for days. They look like golden, puffy nuggets and are a treat to dip in tea or soup. As everything comes together, the mother moves with a certain ceremonial care. Before serving anyone, she takes a moment at the stove. Using a ladle, she scoops up a bit of the finished soup broth and a few drops of milk tea and walks to the door. She opens the door flap and steps just outside for an instant into the night. In a graceful motion, she flicks the ladle, scattering a few droplets of hot tea and soup into the darkness. This is an offering, a quiet thanks to the spirits of the land and sky, and an invitation for good fortune. Even though darkness hides it, we can imagine those droplets arcing into the cool air and falling on the earth, feeding it as it has fed them. It's a subtle ritual, done almost unconsciously each day, imbued with shamanic tradition. Always give the first and best portion to the unseen forces, to Mother Earth, to the Tengri, the eternal blue sky, and to the ancestors who watch over the family. Having given this small libation, she re-enters the Jur, satisfied that the proper respect has been paid. Now the family gathers for dinner. Mongolian Jurs typically have no chairs. People sit cross-legged or kneel on the floor, often on cushions or carpets. Here, a thick felt carpet with colourful patterns covers the floor, insulating against the ground's chill. The father sits on a cushion near the head of the table, which is near the altar side. The mother ladles soup into bowls and passes them around. Each person receives a warm bowl filled with steaming broth, tender meat pieces, and slippery handmade noodles. They also each get a cup of the milk tea. The little boy eagerly snatches a bortsog pastry and dunks it in his soup, biting into it with a grin as drips run down his chin. The mother gently chides him to mind his manners, handing him a cloth to wipe his face, but she can't help smiling. His energy is a good sign of health. The family bows their heads briefly in a moment of gratitude. Though not formalized by a spoken grace, there's an unspoken appreciation. For the animals whose meat and milk they enjoy, for the successful day, for being together in warmth and safety while the steppe night builds outside. In the dim light, their faces are serene, illuminated by the orange glow of the fire. They begin to eat. The only sounds for a while are the clink of spoons on bowls and contented slurps. Mongolian etiquette doesn't frown at slurping. In fact, sipping the salty milk tea with a slight slurp is considered polite and shows enjoyment. The father tears off a strip of mutton from a bone with his teeth, chewing slowly and appreciatively. The flavour is simple, just meat and a hint of salt, but it's rich and filling. The broth warms him from within, each sip warding off the creeping cold of the outside. The mother, between bites, inquires softly if anyone wants more. She tops up her daughter's bowl with a bit more broth and nudges another piece of meat her way, as growing children are always urged to eat heartily. As they dine, a gentle conversation flows, small talk of a nomad family at day's end. They might discuss the well-being of the herd. The lame sheep seem to walk better today after applying that salt compress, notes the mother. The father nods, pleased. They might plan tomorrow's tasks. If weather holds, we'll move the herd to the eastern valley for fresh grass, says the father. And the mother adds that she'll need to churn butter in the morning and perhaps sew a patch on the jur covering. The children pipe up about little events. The daughter giggles about how one goat tried to nibble at her hair when she wasn't looking, or the son proudly reports how he spotted a marmot hole near the stream and wonders if they might catch it later. Marmots are hunted occasionally. These anecdotes are shared in low tones, unhurriedly, interspersed with pauses to sip tea. Occasionally there is laughter, soft and communal. It might happen when the father, with a twinkle in his eye, recounts a funny memory of when he was a child. Perhaps how he once fell off a frisky colt right into a yak dung pile and came home smelling awful, much to his own grandfather's amusement. The children love hearing such personal stories, and their eyes light up in the firelight as they imagine their strong father as a clumsy boy. The mother chuckles, adding that she'd heard that story from her father-in-law too, confirming its truth. These moments of storytelling are precious. In a world without smartphones or TV, at least traditionally, though some modern Jers do have solar-powered TVs, this family seems content without one tonight. Stories and personal histories form the evening entertainment and the thread that connects generations. As dinner winds down, the mother places a bowl of dairy treats on the table. These include dried curd pieces, arul, that are rock hard and tangy sweet, and perhaps some softer clotted cream, for those who want a bit of dessert. The children each take a piece of arul to suck on. They dissolve slowly, like a pastoral candy, providing calcium and a bit of sugar. The father pours himself a second cup of hot milk tea from the thermos that now holds the prepared brew, and leans back slightly against a padded roll of bedding propped by the wall. There is a palpable sense of satisfaction and fatigue in the air, the good kind of tired that follows a day of honest work and a belly full of nourishing food. The mother and daughter begin to clear the low table. In a practiced routine, they scrape any remaining bits of food back into the pot. There's very little waste, but what's left, maybe a piece of gristle or an herb twig, will be fed to the dogs or thrown into the stove. Bowls are stacked, spoons licked clean and set aside to wash later or simply wiped for tomorrow, with scarce water. Sometimes a thorough scrubbing waits until morning. The leftover soup, if any, is covered and placed near the door where it's cooler, to be someone's breakfast or a midnight snack if needed. The bortsog pastries are collected and returned to their sack, tied and hung high on a lattice peg to keep away any mice that might sniff around. Quick, efficient motions, the chores of tidying up are done almost as soon as the meal itself. With dinner complete, the family can finally truly relax. The hour is now early night, perhaps 8 or 9 o'clock, and outside the Jers' walls, darkness is complete. The only light beyond might be the shimmer of stars and a faint blue-white glow from the rising moon. Inside, however, the fire continues to illuminate the space with its friendly flicker. The Jer is now a cozy haven, isolated from the emptiness outside by a layer of felt and the comfort of family presence. Songs, stories, and spiritual calm. In the gentle aftermath of dinner, a tranquil hush falls in the Jer. This is a liminal time when work is done, but sleep has not yet claimed the household. It is a time often filled with quiet activities and bonding, a precious window in which the family can engage in their cultural traditions of song, storytelling, and simple togetherness. The atmosphere is one of contentment. Shadows from the stove's fire dance along the curved walls, as if the ancestors themselves have gathered around to listen and watch. The father reaches behind him to a spot on the lattice wall where a long, narrow wooden case hangs. From it, he withdraws his cherished Morin Khuur, the horsehead fiddle. This traditional Mongolian instrument has a rectangular wooden sound box and a long neck topped with a carving of a horse's head. Its 2 strings are fashioned from horsehair, and a bow strung with horsehair accompanies it. The instrument is modestly decorated with patterns and a bit of coloured cloth, nothing too ornate, but clearly cared for. Every Mongolian family prides itself on having a Morin Khuur, or at least knowing the old melodies it plays. It's said that the sound of the fiddle carries the spirit of the steppe, and many believe it can ward off evil spirits and soothe the heart. The children's eyes sparkle when they see their father pick up the fiddle. They know this means music, and they settle in eagerly. The father cradles the Morin Khuur on his lap, straightening his back as he finds a comfortable posture. He holds the bow loosely in one hand and places the instrument's neck in the crook of his other hand. For a moment, he sits silently, attuning himself to the mood. Perhaps he is thinking of which tune to play, something lively, something solemn. He glances at his wife, who gives a small nod and smile, encouraging whichever song is in his heart tonight. He begins to play. The bow draws across the strings, and a low, haunting note resonates through the Yurt. The sound of the Morin Khuur is soulful and slightly husky, akin to a human voice in its range of expression. As he slides the bow, the note swells, filling the confined space with melody. He plays a slow, long song, an Yurt, which is a traditional form of Mongolian music characterized by extended, flowing vowels and a free rhythm. Though typically long songs are sung with voice, here he lets the fiddle carry the tune, perhaps humming under his breath to guide the melody. The tune he plays is old and well known. It speaks of the vast steppe, of a beloved horse, or of the gentle melancholy of a beautiful evening like this. The family listens in silence, each carried by the music to their own realm of reflection. The mother closes her eyes, swaying almost imperceptibly with the melody. The children lean against her, the girl resting her head on her mother's arm, the boy thumb in mouth, growing drowsy yet captivated. The flickering lamp and firelight reveal the father's face calm and focused, his soul pouring through his fingertips into the strings. Outside, one of the tethered horses whinnies softly, almost as if recognizing the familiar strains of a lullaby about horses and responding in kind. It's a moment of pure cultural immersion. Within this felt tent on the grasslands, an ancient music flows as naturally as the wind over the plains. After a few minutes, the song transitions seamlessly into another. This time, the father quietly sings a verse to accompany the fiddle. His voice is low and resonant, carrying words in Mongolian that perhaps the children have heard many nights before. The lyrics might translate to something poetic. Oh, serene steppe under the eternal sky, my heart roams free with my horse. The actual words blend and echo. Even without knowing the exact meaning, one can feel the love for the land and life in each note. The mother joins in softly on a refrain, her alto harmony weaving with his melody. Their voices are untrained by conservatories but trained by life. They are steady, genuine, and full of emotion. For a nomadic family, music isn't a performance to be applauded. It's a natural extension of speech, a way to express feelings that plain words might not capture. Time seems to slow as the family absorbs the song. You can almost see in their faces images evoked by the music. Endless green summer pastures, a rider galloping freely, a distant mountain bathed in morning light, or memories of those who sang these songs in this same Yurt years ago. The songs have likely been passed down through memory, taught by grandparents around a similar stove decades prior. In singing them tonight, the family strengthens their bond to their heritage, to each other, and to the tranquil moment at hand. As the last note of the Morin Khuur fades, a heavy silence, the satisfying kind, lingers. The father gently sets the fiddle aside, propping it safely in its case. The children, though sleepy, clap softly or simply grin in appreciation. The little boy, fighting off a yawn, requests quietly, "Arv, please one more song," using the Mongolian word for father. The father chuckles and pats the boy's head. Maybe later, he promises with a wink, or tomorrow. It's clear the music has both calmed and slightly enervated the little ones, as lullabies are meant to. To channel the children's energy and also to share a bit of fun, the mother proposes a quick game of shagai. From a small embroidered pouch, she produces a handful of polished ankle bones. These are sheep ankle bones, known as shagai, used for various traditional games and fortune-telling. The bones, about the size of large dice, can land on 4 sides, each side named after an animal: horse, camel, sheep, goat, depending on how it falls. This simple game has entertained nomad children and adults for centuries. Tonight they'll play a basic version. The mother scatters 4 bones onto the carpet and asks the daughter to interpret how they fall, almost like a playful fortune-telling. The bones land showing 2 horses, 1 camel and 1 sheep. The girl gleefully declares this a good omen. 2 horses mean luck and success. The camel implies strong endurance, and the sheep perhaps means peace. The family laughs gently at her confident reading. Then the boy takes a turn, flicking the bones with a thumb like shooting marbles, to try to hit a target bone, giggling each time he misses or succeeds. It's a light, tinkling sound as the bones click against each other and the wooden threshold of the stove. After a few rounds, even this fun game can't keep the children's eyelids from growing heavy. The combination of a full belly, warmth music, and now the late hour has made them undeniably drowsy. The little boy actually lies down mid-game, his head on a folded deal that's serving as a pillow, and simply watches the others through half-closed eyes. The girl yawns and begins to tidy the bones back into their pouch without being asked, a sure sign she's ready to wind down. Sensing that the day is truly drawing to a close, the herder and his wife engage in one more meaningful ritual, a quiet spiritual observance typical of nomadic families. The father rises and takes a small carved wooden snuff bottle from a niche in the altar. Inside is a pinch of juniper incense powder. He sprinkles a bit onto the stove's hot coal. A fragrant smoke of juniper and herbs wafts up, purifying the air. Juniper smoke is considered cleansing, an offering pleasing to both spirits and senses. The family inhales the scent. It is soothing and considered protective. Next, the father reaches for a small cup of vodka or shagai. Earlier in the year, they distilled this clear spirit from fermented yogurt or milk. It's a harsh but treasured homemade vodka. In Mongolian tradition, the morning offering is of milk or tea to the sky, and the evening offering is often of vodka or alcohol, symbolizing a conclusion to the day. He steps to the door and opens it. The night air invades briefly, with a little gust that makes the lamp flame dance. Outside, the world is silent and silvered by moonlight. The herder lifts the cup toward the heavens. He dips his ring finger into the vodka, and with a quick flick of his wrist, he flings droplets toward the sky, once, twice, 3 times. Tiny sparkling droplets disperse upward and vanish into the dark. In a low voice, almost a whisper, he offers a traditional benediction, perhaps something like Tengirian Ok, meaning to the sky, receive this, or simply a silent, heartfelt wish for his family's well-being. This act is called Khuur Sergik, awakening the wind horse, a metaphor for revitalizing one's spirit and fortune. He then turns and flicks a couple of drops in each of the other 3 cardinal directions, a sign of respect to the land spirits around. Finally, he touches the remaining drops to his own forehead and that of each family member, symbolically blessing them with the offering. The mother bows her head slightly as he anoints her with the faint scent of vodka. The children, half asleep, smile as the cool wetness touches their brows. They've grown up with this nightly gesture of love and protection. Closing the door again, the father sets the cup aside. The night outside has been formally acknowledged. Whatever roams out there, be it spirit or animal or ancestor, has been greeted and honoured. Inside, they are now sealed in a cocoon of safety until dawn. The wife takes a moment at the altar. She lights a small butter lamp, a tiny flame fueled by sheep butter in a metal bowl, and offers a brief prayer to the family's ancestral spirits and to the Buddha, whose serene image glows in the lamp's light. She might silently thank them for the day's fortune or ask for continued protection through the night. The children are quiet, watching their mother's silhouette bow in respect. Even if they fidget during formal prayers sometimes, tonight they seem to intuit the sanctity of the moment and remain still. With these gentle spiritual rituals complete, the family transitions toward bedtime. Night under the eternal sky. Inside the Yurt, preparations for sleep begin. The mother slides a panel on the stove to dampen the fire a bit, not extinguishing it, but reducing it to a gentle smoulder that will provide a low warmth through part of the night. In summer, a big fire isn't needed all night, but a small one keeps the chill and any insects away. The orange glow in the stove dims to a soft red, and the shadows in the jar lengthen and blur. The bedding is brought out from where it was rolled and stacked along the walls. The family doesn't have Western-style beds. Instead, they use thick quilts, layers of felt, and sometimes woolen mats laid directly on the floor or on low wooden bed frames if they have them. Tonight, it appears they will sleep on the floor around the stove, a common and comfortable arrangement. The father unrolls a large felt mat, spreading it near the west side. The mother shakes out heavy quilts and lays them down, creating a broad, cushioned sleeping area. Embroidered pillows, flat from years of use but still cherished, are placed for the adults and children. The children change into their sleeping clothes, or rather, they shed a layer of their day clothes. In a jar, especially in older times, people didn't have extensive wardrobes. A child might simply take off their jacket or outer deal and sleep in a cotton shirt and trousers. The little boy, now fully succumbed to fatigue, plops onto the quilts, wrapping himself instinctively in a corner of a blanket. The girl, blinking slowly, insists on helping a last bit. She folds the clothing that was taken off and puts it by the trunk, an endearing attempt to mimic her mother's tidiness before her own sleepiness takes over. The mother smiles and guides her to lie down, brushing the girl's hair from her forehead. The father steps out one final time to quickly check the outdoors. He unhooks the door and peeks out. The moon is higher now, bathing the steppe in a ghostly light. All seems calm. The silhouette of a cow lying in the grass near the corral, the horses quietly standing at their tether post, heads lowered in rest. One of the dogs, hearing the door, lifts its head and thumps its tail on the ground. The herder makes a soft clicking sound with his tongue, a way of saying, "All's well, you keep watch." The dog settles again. High above, countless stars shimmer and a shooting star streaks suddenly across the blackness. The herder traces its path with his eyes. In Mongolian folklore, a shooting star can mean a soul is passing or an omen. Some might whisper a quick protective charm when they see one. Perhaps he does under his breath. Then he inhales the cold night air deeply, letting it fill his lungs and sharpen his senses for a moment. It's a bracing, pure air that carries a faint hint of sagebrush and the sweet tang of distant snow on mountains. He feels profoundly alive in this quiet second, alone under the vast firmament. To be alone, you go outside, as the old saying goes. And indeed, here he is, experiencing a solitude that is not loneliness but connection to nature, to the ancestral spirits possibly swirling in the sky, and to his own inner thoughts. He steps back in and bars the door behind him. The inside of the jar now feels especially warm and dim after the silver outdoors. The only lights are the dull red stove embers and the small butter lamp on the altar, which the mother now gently extinguishes with a quick pinch of the wick, whispering good night in meaning if not word to the spirits. A thin wisp of smoke curls from the lamp as the flame dies, adding a final touch of incense to the air. The parents quietly join the children on the bedding. The father lies on his back for a moment, looking up at the lattice roof and the roof wheel at the top. Through the roof's round opening, which they've left uncovered because the weather is fair, he can see a patch of sky. A few stars twinkle right above, perhaps part of the Milky Way crossing that circular frame. It's like a natural planetarium. He can stargaze from his bed. There is a beloved Mongolian lullaby that speaks of the baby sleeping under the 7 stars. He hums a fragment of it now while gazing upward. The mother lies down as well, the daughter cuddled against her. The father reaches out and pulls a quilt over all of them. They lie in a row or a gentle huddle, sharing body warmth and the closeness that families in jars know so well. The children are the first to drift off. The girl's breathing becomes slow and steady, her small hand still clutching one of her mother's fingers. The boy, mouth slightly open in slumber, has tucked a worn little cloth toy, perhaps a doll or a carved horse figurine under his chin. The mother watches them fondly in the low light, the fire casting just enough glow to see the contours of their peaceful faces. She can't resist placing a tender kiss on each child's forehead, careful not to wake them, but so filled with love that she has to express it. In the stillness, one can hear the faint sound of the children's breaths and an occasional sleepy sigh. Outside, the wind picks up just a little, creating a gentle rustling through the grass that surrounds the Yurt. To the family, this is a familiar lullaby of nature. The walls of the Yurt might flap softly if a breeze catches the felt edges, but the sturdy structure holds firm. The suspended chiming of metal, the door has a tiny bell, or the hanging pots clink, can be heard as the wind moves through. The dogs utter a distant bark once, likely in response to a nocturnal fox or some rustle, then are quiet again. The animals outside, having found their comfortable spots, are largely silent now too. A ewe might shuffle in the pen, or a horse might snort and adjust its stance, but mostly they rest, instinctively knowing their guardians are nearby. Inside, the father remains awake just a bit longer. His eyes have adjusted to the darkness, and he can make out the outline of the altar, the shape of the saddle by the door, and the faint glimmer on the polished wood of his Morin Khuur leaned against the wall. These humble possessions, each with a purpose, each with a story, give him a sense of pride and gratitude. They have everything they need here in this mobile home, he thinks, everything that matters. Shelter, sustenance, meaningful work, family, culture, and freedom. He ponders, as he often does in these quiet moments, the way of life they lead. It is not an easy life by any means. There are harsh winters, scarce resources at times, and hard labor. But it is their life, chosen and inherited, flowing in tune with the seasons and the animals. There's a profound contentment in that realization. His mind drifts to the history behind him. Perhaps he envisions how his ancestors centuries ago might have been doing exactly this, settling into their yurts after a day of herding, under the same eternal sky. He might recall that one of his grandfathers told him they are descended from a long line of nomads who rode with the great Khans. Whether literal or not, the idea makes him swell with a gentle pride. The way they tie a knot, the way they sing a melody, the way they offer milk to the sky each morning, these are threads connecting them to countless generations before. Even in the absolute quiet of the night, he feels that presence, as if ghosts of his forefathers sit around the hearth with them, smiling and keeping watch. He also thinks of the future. Will his children continue this tradition? Modern Mongolia is changing. He's heard the news from towns and visiting relatives about more families moving to the city, about new opportunities and also new hardships in urban life. But tonight here, that world feels far away and almost irrelevant. What matters is that his children are learning the ways of the steppe, how to care for animals, how to respect nature, how to be resilient and kind. Whatever they become, these roots will be in them. He is hopeful that, like the hardy grass of the steppe which always returns after fires or winter, this nomadic culture will endure in some form. With a soft sigh, he lets these thoughts go. The present moment, the soft snore of his son, the warmth of his wife's shoulder against his, anchors him in simple happiness. All around, the night deepens. The temperature inside the Yurt has cooled, but under the quilts the family is snug. Occasionally the father will reach over and add a nugget of fuel to the stove if he senses the air getting too chilly, a reflex even in semi-sleep. The faint red glow in the stove might pulse brighter for a few minutes, casting new shadows that gently flutter across the sleeping family's faces. Then it too will fade as the fuel is consumed. Through the roof opening, a shaft of moonlight now slants in, laying a pale stripe across the floor and part of the wall. Perhaps it touches the altar, illuminating for a moment the silver bowl of yesterday's offering or the curve of a Buddha figurine, before shifting away as the moon moves on its nightly path. If one were to peek into the jar now, they'd see a tableau of utter peace. 4 figures asleep in a circle of light and shadow, encircled by the humble treasures of their daily life, with the silent witness of stars above. Outside, the cosmos watches over this little camp. The Milky Way arches overhead like a glittering river of light. The Big Dipper has rotated slightly as the night hours progress, but its handle still points roughly towards the North Star, keeping that eternal orientation. A meteor silently burns out in the upper atmosphere, unseen by the slumbering humans below. The land itself seems to sleep, the grass is still, the distant mountains under a veil of darkness. And yet there is a sense of vigilance too in the scene. The dogs occasionally raise their heads and sniff the air. A mare standing guard while her foal lies down stays half awake, ears twitching, and the herder himself, though asleep, would likely awaken at the slightest alarm from his animals. This balance of rest and alertness is how life survives in the wild openness of Mongolia. Tonight, however, no alarm comes. It is a benevolent night, offering the family the gift of undisturbed rest. Hours pass in this gentle stasis. Perhaps the father stirs once to find the little boy has rolled away from under the blanket. He gently scoops him closer, tucking the quilt around the child again. The mother, in her sleep, murmurs something unintelligible, possibly a dream conversation with someone long gone or a dream herding of sheep across a dream pasture. The children occasionally make those small noises that children do, a sigh, a little whimper that subsides as quickly as it came, an arm stretching out to find a parent's warm body beside them. In these darkest hours before dawn, the connection between the family and their environment is at its strongest yet quietest. They breathe in sync with the slower rhythm of night. The knowledge that around them lies a vast expanse of open land does not breed fear. It gives a profound sense of freedom and unity with nature. The entire steppe is their backyard and also their roof. It shelters them as much as the jurs, felt and poles do. Perhaps the herder dreams of riding across that endless land, the wind at his back and an eagle flying overhead. Perhaps the mother dreams of a summer gathering with relatives where songs are exchanged around a fire. The children might dream of lambs to play with or the thrill of galloping on a pony. All dreams eventually yield to morning. And soon there will be a subtle change, a slightly lighter hue on the eastern horizon, a stirring among the roosters, if any, in a distant camp, a change in the air's temperature signaling dawn's approach. But for now, in this script, we stay in the embrace of night just a little longer, savouring the emotional atmosphere of tranquility, safety, and profound continuity. This evening ritual we've witnessed, from the golden sunset to the starry midnight, is more than just a routine. It is a living poem of nomadic existence, each verse made of simple actions suffused with meaning. The way the herder gathered his animals reflects a philosophy of stewardship and harmony with nature. The way the family shared their meal and tea shows the centrality of hospitality and gratitude in their culture. Their songs and stories revealed the richness of their oral traditions and the close family bonds that keep those traditions alive. And their offerings to sky and fire, and the quiet sleeping under the eternal dome of stars, highlighted the spiritual dimension that infuses even the most ordinary day. In our modern world, such scenes can feel like a step back in time, but for the herder's family, this is just life, present, immediate and real. It's meditative in its repetition and comforting in its predictability, yet never monotonous because nature always adds some variation. A different sunset colour, a sudden breeze, a new calf born, a surprise visit from a neighbour, or an unexpected memory surfacing during a song. As our long journey through this nomadic evening comes to its close, we carry with us the gentle lessons it offered. There is beauty in simplicity. There is strength in community and routine. There is wisdom in living closely with the natural world, adjusting your pace to its rhythm. And there is peace to be found when day turns to night, when work turns to rest, and when a family gathers under one roof to share in the ancient and sacred ordinariness of life. Eventually, in a few hours, the cycle will start anew. The mother will awaken at first light to feed the fire and prepare the morning's milk tea, stepping outside to flick fresh tea to the dawn sky in thanks for a new day. The herder will pull on his boots and step out to greet the crisp morning, calling to his animals, perhaps finding that thin frost or dew has settled on the grass. The children will rub their eyes and crawl from under the blankets as the Yurt warms up with the new fire, ready to chase the lambs or colts once more. The sun will rise over the eastern steppe, flooding the world with light and life again, and the Mongolian nomadic herder's daily cycle will continue, a seamless loop of traditions stretching back into history and forward into hope. But that is tomorrow. For now, we end our narration in the quiet sanctum of the Yurt, in the heart of a peaceful night. The camera of our mind's eye pans slowly upward, perhaps giving us one last glimpse of the family, bundled together in sleep, then through the roof up to the sky full of stars. We take in that vast, silent view, the infinite cosmos over the silent steppe, and then gently fade out, holding onto the feeling of calm and fulfillment that this journey through an evening ritual has given us. In this meditative closing moment, time feels suspended, and one could almost hear the soft heartbeat of the steppe itself. Fade to black. The ritual of the night is complete, and in that darkness lies the promise of dawn and the continuation of life's great rhythm. Seasons on the steppe, how evenings change through the year. The evening you have just followed is only one moment in the long cycle of the year. On the Mongolian steppe, time is not only measured in hours, but in grass, wind, and light. The same family repeats an evening like this hundreds of times, yet it never feels exactly the same. The sky changes, the animals change, the land itself seems to breathe in a slower rhythm than the clock. Imagine that you are still sitting by the Yurt door, listening to the last faint clinks of bowls being stacked away. The fire is quiet, the smoke has thinned. The herder steps outside for a moment, pulls his coat tighter and looks up at the sky. As he does, the narration pulls back in time. You see the same camp in winter. The grass is buried under snow that crunches like dry sugar under boots. The Yurt is lined with extra felt. Ropes are pulled tight against the knife-sharp wind. Outside, the animals are kept closer to the shelter, their breath rising in pale clouds. In winter, evening comes early. The sun slants low in the sky and vanishes quickly behind a ridge. The herder and his family race the darkness. They chop frozen dung for fuel, check the animals for any signs of frostbite or weakness, and hurry back inside before the temperature plunges. Inside the Yurt, the evening ritual is even more focused on warmth. The stove is kept hot. Thick meat stews simmer in heavy iron pots. Everyone sits nearer the fire. Conversation is slower, voices quieter, as if sound itself might crack in the cold air outside. Now the scene shifts. The snow melts. Spring moves over the steppe like a long breath released. Lambs and kids stumble on unsteady legs. Foals press close to their mothers. The light lingers longer. The family rises earlier and sleeps later because this is the season when the herds need constant attention. Spring evenings are full of small, urgent sounds. The bleating of young animals, the whistles of herders guiding them, the clatter of milk pails as the first rich milks are collected after winter. Inside the Yurt, the work continues well into the night. Cream is skimmed, yogurt is stirred. New batches of arul, the hard dried curds that will last through the year, are prepared and laid out to dry during the day. The air smells of milk, smoke, and new grass brought in on clothing and boots. Then comes summer. The camp moves closer to water. The Yurt might stand near a river or on a high meadow where the grass is deep and soft. The days are long, bright, and hot. The animals spread wide across the landscape, grazing in lazy, drifting groups. Summer evenings feel almost endless. The sun hangs low but refuses to disappear. Children play outside long after they should be in bed. Riders return slowly from distant pastures, their silhouettes small against the glowing sky. Sometimes music drifts from a neighbouring Yurt. Sometimes in the far distance you can hear echoes of a festival, the faint rhythm of a drum, the whistle of a horse race from a Nardam celebration somewhere across the grassland. Inside, the Yurt is warm, but the door is left open for the evening breeze. The family sits farther from the stove. The fire is smaller. Tea and Airag, the fermented mare's milk of summer, are shared in turn. The talk is relaxed. There is less urgency, more laughter. Finally, autumn. The light turns golden and soft. The grass dries to a pale yellow. The air sharpens again, not yet winter, but no longer the gentleness of summer. Autumn evenings are busy in a different way. The family prepares for the coming cold. Meat is preserved. Dairy products are dried and stored. Saddles, ropes, and felt covers are checked and repaired. Every item is inspected because months of severe weather are approaching. Outside the Yurt, you can see stacks of dung fuel piled neatly, ready to feed the stove through winter storms. Herds are counted and recounted. Decisions are made about which animals will be kept for breeding and which will provide meat. The same evening rituals continue: milking, feeding, cooking, tea, stories, sleep. But under everything is a quiet awareness of the cycle of the year. The family knows that the steppe can be generous but also demanding. Preparation is a form of respect. As you listen, the seasons slide past like pages turning slowly in a book. Yet in every season, the core of the evening remains the same. Fires, food, family, sky. The details change, but the rhythm is steady and calm, like breathing. You return now to the present night. The same Yurt, the same family, the same quiet rituals resting on centuries of repetition. Night watch and the silent landscape. As the children lie down and the interior of the Yurt settles into deep stillness, the work of the evening is not entirely finished. Outside, the steppe does not sleep all at once. Some animals continue to move. The horses drift like shadows. Dogs lift their heads, ears alert. Somewhere far away, a fox may be prowling near the edge of the camp. In some regions, wolves still watch the herds from a distance, patient and clever. For this reason, many herders keep a kind of night watch. The father, or sometimes the oldest son or daughter, steps quietly out into the dark. The air is colder now. Stars burn with clear, icy light. The Milky Way stretches from one horizon to the other like a pale road across the sky. The herder walks slowly around the camp. Boots crunch on frost-stiffened grass. The animals shift and murmur. The dogs circle wider, noses testing the air. The herder checks the ropes on the pens, the knots on the gates, the position of the horses. It is not only practical, it is also a kind of ritual of care. On the open steppe, the herd is everything. It is food, income, clothing, transport, and security. A night of neglect could mean animals lost to predators, storms, or simple wandering. A quiet circuit of the camp, repeated night after night, is a way of telling the land, we are still here and we are watching. You follow this watch through the herder's eyes. In the darkness, familiar things look slightly strange. The outlines of the Yurt and the corral are softened. The hills are only darker shapes against the sky, but the herder knows every sound and silhouette. A horse snorts, a sheep shifts and lies down again. Far away, an owl calls. Sometimes in winter, the night watch is faster and more urgent. The herder checks that no snowdrift has blocked a pen, that no animal is trapped or separated. Sometimes he brushes snow away from a weak animal's face, murmuring to it softly before returning inside. At other times, in gentle summer nights, the watch becomes almost contemplative. The herder stands for a long time, leaning on a fence post or a saddle, just listening to the rhythm of breathing from hundreds of sleeping animals. In that moment, the camp feels like a single living body. The Yurt is its heart, the herd is its limbs, the dogs are its nerves, twitching at the slightest disturbance. The herder returns inside. He lifts the felt door flap carefully and steps back into the soft dimness of the interior, bringing the cold night air in with him. He adds a piece of dried dung to the stove so that the embers will last until dawn. Then he lies down among his family, trusting that the dogs, the fence, and his own careful checks will carry them safely through the night. Outside, the steppe continues to move in its own slow, silent way. Memories by the fire, the herder's past. The evening you are hearing belongs to one particular family, living in one particular moment. But behind them lies a long history that shapes everything they do. Imagine that the children have fallen asleep, and the older members of the family are still awake. The grandmother adjusts her blankets and stares at the glowing stove. The grandfather leans on one elbow, his eyes half closed. In this drowsy space, stories begin to rise. They might talk quietly about the past, not as a formal lesson, but as fragments of memory. The grandfather remembers his childhood in a different kind of camp. He may have grown up in the era when many herds in Mongolia were organized into collectives. The Yurt stood in a larger settlement with other families. There were rules, leaders, and shared responsibilities. He remembers group roundups of animals, shared labor during shearing and branding, visits from officials, and the mixture of security and restriction that came with it. His stories drift between pride in surviving hard winters together and the tension of quotas and centralized decisions. The grandmother remembers learning to milk, to sew, to make felt under the watchful eye of older women. She remembers nights with no electric light at all, when every task depended only on daylight and fire. She remembers the first time she saw a small radio brought into a Yurt, bringing distant voices into the center of the steppe. The parents of the current family remember the transformations after the end of the socialist period. They talk about privatization, about receiving animals as their own property, about the risk and freedom that came with that change. They recall seasons when prices were low, winters when too many animals died in a desert, a severe cold spell, and the difficult choice between moving to the city or staying on the land. All of this history is present in the way they move through their evening. Their gestures around the stove carry memories of scarcity and abundance. Their careful counting of animals reflects lessons taught by elders who survived harder times. When they correct a child's grip on a rope or remind them not to waste food, they are not only teaching skills for today, they are lengthening a chain that stretches back through generations of herders who face the same winds and the same distances. You, as a listener, feel this continuity. Even as the script remains gentle and slow, you sense that each simple action carries many layers. Personal memory, family history, national history, and the deep time of nomadic life on the steppe. The fire burns lower. The voices fade. The past settles back into silence. Under the eternal blue sky, a quiet philosophy. Later in the night, the herder wakes briefly. Perhaps a dog barked, perhaps the wind shifted, perhaps it is only habit. He opens his eyes, listening, then relaxes when he hears nothing alarming. But now that he is awake, he lies quietly and thinks. For many steppe herders, the sky is more than scenery. It is a presence. People sometimes speak of the eternal blue sky with a mixture of reverence and familiarity. It is above every camp, over every journey, over every generation. It outlasts rulers, cities, and even entire ways of life. The herder does not make a speech about this, but in the dark he feels it. He thinks about the long rides he has made across valleys and ridges, always guided by the same stars. He thinks about storms that appeared suddenly, changing plans in an instant. He thinks about summers of abundance and winters of loss. He has learned that control here is always partial. You can choose the campsite, but not the winter. You can care for the herd, but not decide how much snow will fall. You can teach your children skills, but not fully know what kind of future they will face. From this, a quiet philosophy emerges. It values patience more than speed. It values endurance more than display. It respects animals not as decoration, but as partners in survival. It holds hospitality as a duty, because any traveler may be in real need across such wide distances. If someone arrives at the Yurt door, they are offered tea and food first and questions later. On the steppe, this is not only courtesy. It is a moral code shaped by isolation and risk. As you listen, the narration invites you to share this perspective. You imagine lying under the same vast sky, feeling very small but not insignificant. The scale of the land and the slowness of its changes encourage a different sense of time. Projects are measured in seasons. Lives are measured in herds, children, and journeys. The herder closes his eyes again. The eternal blue sky still stretches above the Yurt roof, even though he cannot see it. In the morning, when he steps outside, it will be there again, as it was for his grandparents and their grandparents before them. A changing steppe, gentle epilogue. Toward the end of the night, the script widens its view once more. The camp grows faint, as if seen from high above. You see that this family is one among many scattered across Mongolia's grasslands, deserts, and mountain valleys. Some families live in Yurts full-time, moving several times a year with their herds. Some live part of the year in town, sending older relatives or hired herders to the pastures. Some have left herding altogether, moving to Ulaanbaatar or to mining towns, keeping only a few animals or none at all. The world around nomadic life is changing. Climate patterns are shifting. Some regions face more frequent droughts and harsh winters. Pastures near cities and mines can become overgrazed. Young people often seek education and jobs in towns, drawn by new possibilities and technologies. Yet, as you float above the landscape in your imagination, you also see the resilience of this way of life. Hauling water from wells, riding out at dawn to find animals in fog, sharing tea and news in a jar on a distant plain, tying ropes across a roof before a storm, adjusting ancient skills to new tools, like using motorcycles alongside horses, or checking weather forecasts on a phone while still reading the sky by eye. The script does not rush to a conclusion. Instead, it offers a simple image. The sky is beginning to brighten at the edge of the world. Not yet sunrise, but the first hint of grey. Inside the jar, the embers in the stove glow faintly. Blankets rise and fall with sleeping breaths. Outside, the herd is a soft mass of shapes and warmth. Soon the herder will rise, add fuel to the fire, and begin another day. The cycle of tasks will repeat. Milking, grazing, repairing, cooking, talking, resting. But for a few more minutes, the steppe is balanced on the edge between night and morning. You, the listener, are invited to rest in that balance, to feel the calm weight of routine, to imagine the slow hooves of animals pressing a pattern into the earth, to picture a single jar under a wide sky, its door facing the east, waiting for the sun. And as your breathing slows and your thoughts become softer, the voice guiding you through this world begins to fade. The steppe remains. The herder's evening, now complete, settles gently into memory.